My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hello, this is Melba Duncan. The leadership quote that I'd like to suggest, and one that I find to be very, very resourceful for any one of us who wants to remember what leadership means, is the Albert Einstein quote. Try not to become a man of success. Rather, become a man of value.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become irreplaceable, game-changing leader assistants.
Please review on iTunes. Hey everybody, it's episode 22.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. This episode means a lot to me. I read an article in the Harvard Business Review several years ago called The Case for Executive Assistants. And it was all about how executive assistants save so much money for executives and directly impact the bottom line. And the author of that article was Melba Duncan. So today's episode, I'm super thrilled to interview Melba and share the conversation we had about assistants, executives, the partnership, how to recruit assistants, how to empower them. And it's just very humbling to me that I was given the chance to talk with Melba several years after I read her article as a new assistant, and how encouraging she was back then via her words in the Harvard Business Review, and how encouraging she was in our conversation that I'm about to share with you. So Melba Duncan has been training assistants since before I was an EA. She's the founder and president of the Duncan Group, a retained search and consulting firm. She's also author of a few books. So I will share all of her information and her full bio on the show notes at leaderassistant.com/22. But I wanted to jump right into the interview with Melba. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. I'm super excited to have Melba Duncan on the show today. Hi, Melba.
Hello, it's my privilege to be here. Thank you.
I know you've had a crazy day today. You just had you're featured in an article in Forbes, which is very exciting to see EA advocates such as yourself, Al Hussein Madhani, and Bonnie Lowe Craman, and Lucy Brazier as well were featured. So has it been a crazy day for you?
It really has been, but it's a very exciting day because we are finally starting to be recognized as the individuals who are just persevering and driving the concept of business partnership for executive assistants. We want to raise the bar, and we want to educate globally the world on what this role is, what it can be, and where it is headed. So I am absolutely thrilled to be included in that conversation. And we all seem to have the same desire to see change brought to the concept and, I would say, perception of what this role is, and actually educate individuals on what it can be and should be.
That's great. Very exciting times. So let's kind of talk a little bit about you and go back in time a little bit. When was your very first job, or what was your very first job, and what skills have you learned, or did you learn in that job that you still use today?
Interestingly, my very first assistant position was as the second assistant to Sanford C. Bernstein. And I was hired. I walked in and he said, okay, the one thing you must do in 6 months is pass the registered rep exam. I didn't even know what that meant. This was really my first step into the world of assisting and into the world of knowing that CEOs do not take the time to tell you what they mean or intend. You have to figure it out. So that meant that I had to pass the exam so that I could trade securities on the New York Stock Exchange, because he actually did the trading for the Sanford C. Bernstein Company, which was a discretionary firm. So he would send the orders down to the floor clerk, and I would as well acknowledge and keep a record and keep track of those orders that were put through. So that was the first position for me. And what I learned from that was know what you don't know. And when you don't know something, just admit to it and then figure out how to get the information you need. But also, when the challenge is put in front of you, as Sandy put in front of me, you have to, if you're an assistant, you really rise to that level. And I literally memorized most of the information from the course that I took, and came back and said, I received, a B plus. He said, you didn't get an A? I said, no, I have a B plus. So there were standards that were established by Sandy Bernstein. And he said to me, you never say you cannot do something. You say, I will get to it. So he taught me how to think differently and prepared me. And with his permission, absolutely endorsed the fact that I was asked to work with Peter Peterson when he left the White House. And he said, I think this is a good opportunity for you. It's a different world, and you're going to learn an awful lot. But what I learned from Sandy was, attention to detail, and know what you don't know and find out, because that also applied, especially to my work with Pete Peterson, who, with the White House and the global world in which he existed, I had to learn from beginning to end what it meant to meet and greet individuals from different environments, different cultures, different levels of society, what that meant. And he included me in most of these meetings. So I was able to understand what he wanted to accomplish. So the learning in both of these environments was constant. And on a Saturday afternoon, I am there in my office, and I'm actually sitting there doing what needs to be done to be prepared for Monday morning. It was not anything I would talk about. I would just get it done. I never wanted to be caught without having as much information as possible. So working with these two gentlemen was a wonderful, wonderful way to learn what the role of assisting can be, and how exciting it can be if you're really well matched with someone. You have to like the person you work with. You have to want the best for them, and that has to be a mutual response. And then you have a relationship that is unmatched. So that was my learning from both. And it was a great experiences. And I'm very grateful for that.
So when you were younger, did you ever imagine or even know that being an assistant was a career opportunity?
No, I grew up in an environment where my father went to McGill University. He was a scientist. My mother was a nurse. So I come out of that level of education and thinking. And the person in the school who really would sit down and speak with us, and I was pretty much a straight A student. And she said to me, well, you could be a nurse's aide. And, that stays in my mind to this day. And I thought, no, that is not what I'm going to do. And so I decided to get a position. And I ended up landing a position at Bernstein and Company. Frankly, I started out as the receptionist there. And I learned a little bit. And then he came out one day and he said, I need a second person in my office, and you're it. He never asked whether you agreed or not. He just said, you're it. And I said, okay. So no, and I didn't even think about a higher level of education. I was in many ways sort of disappointed with that comment, but I decided I will find my own way. And, we never do. Others help us, but I just pursued this. And then I decided, you know what? I like it. I like the challenge of not knowing what's going to happen next. And that to me is the assistant position. I love that. And I love being able to anticipate, and just kept moving forward.
So what was you just said you love being able to anticipate, figure out what's next. What else did you love about the role of an assistant?
that you really could add value. But it's not about who I am as the assistant. It's I'm here to help someone else to be great. That's ultimately what I came away with working for Pete Peterson and Sandy. I'm here to make sure that what you need, if I am able to repair it and make sure it's appropriate, then I will get it done. So I like the fact that that individuals that I reported to actually look to me in many ways to figure things out and get them done. That's what I love most about that role. And when I made a mistake, as I did with Sandy one day, I said to him, I know I told you it was 10, but it's 10:15. He said, you can't buy securities 15 minutes late. I said, I understand that. I mean, I just remember these things. I said, I understand that, and I apologize. And so owning what you've done, and, you feel as though the world is coming to an end. I'm making it sound very lighthearted now, but certainly terrified, because there's certain types of mistakes that I think now that I know what the role is, that you need to be careful not to make. So attention to detail was something that I learned there and never forgot. And I would read sentences backwards to make sure I didn't have, and then we use typewriters, I didn't have a typographical mistake in anything. I'd read things backwards before I handed them in. So it's again, the diligence that this role requires and the focus and the caring. I think you learn a lot about who you are as a person and who you can be in terms of your intellect. And that's what I love about the work. I think of every client as a CEO, and I'm reporting to that person, even though I'm on an assignment and I'm working on a very different business model, but nevertheless, that's my client. And I have to make sure I understand temperament, pace, behavior, response, timing. Somebody says, I have 3 minutes, make sure it's only 3 minutes, not 4. So, you learn to be exact. And by nature, maybe that's who I was anyway, very exact.
So why is an assistant, you've talked a little bit about this already, but why is an assistant crucial to the success of an executive?
Because in many ways, an assistant personifies that executive, but is able to take away from that person. If you have the relationship and you can explain to that executive what you are able to do and manage, you have to let someone know what you know. The reality is that executive finds himself or herself with a level of freedom for functions that they do not necessarily need to manage. And the trust factor then becomes integral to that relationship. So educating executives in what you're able to take away, being clearly articulate in what you're able to do, and showing that you understand how to ease tense moments, how to get the facts the way they should be presented, how to double check every single detail, understand skills, distraction, all those things. When you take those impediments away from executives, they are now free to manage what they need to be doing. An executive, in my opinion, with the appropriate assistant, should never have to ask, where am I going next? That person, if they notice that the executive may have forgotten that, you have a meeting in 3 minutes. Well, you're standing at the door and you're saying, I'll walk you to the room. Mm-hmm. Humor is also essential in this role. So it is allowing executives to do what they should be doing. And as much as you can take away from that executive to free that person's time, here's what you have. You have that turns into bottom line. Because if an executive is able to manage much more than he or she thought, because you have an aide who's able to take on more and more responsibility, well, guess what? You can do more for the business and for yourself. So it impacts the bottom line. So freeing executives, I think, is critical. And being able to manage, flawlessly, I like that word, flawlessly manage schedules and contingency plans. Make sure an executive never has to ask, where am I going next? But you also understand the temperament of that person, and timing is essential, and how you get things done is essential. So it's freeing executives to do what they should be doing and enabling them to expand within their roles while you are also expanding in yours.
Let's speak to the executives for a second. What's one tip that you would give executives to help them empower and get more ROI out of their assistants?
Mm-hmm. Share their intentions. Sit down with that assistant and say, these are my plans, these are my goals, this is what I want to achieve. And say to that executive assistant, tell me what within the scope of what we have just discussed are you able to take from me and manage? So demonstrating what you know is essential to that executive. But without that communication and without sharing the key responsibilities that the executive must manage, regardless of what level that individual happens to be in any organization, taking the time to advance your assistant into the role of higher level responsibility is, I think, an absolute function for a good manager. That's a great manager. But on the other hand, for the assistant is to say, here's what I'm able to do. I saw 10 emails that have come in. By the way, I think if you trust your assistant, you should share your emails. I saw 10 emails. I've drafted 3 responses. See what you think. You have just educated that executive in what you're able to do. And by sharing information, managers of the world, by sharing information, you are educating that assistant into the business that you're in. So you don't have someone just sitting there doing function after function after function. They are all related. And once assistants understand, they know how to move forward. The right assistant, you can't stop that person. They really are one of the most intelligent individuals on these planets because no one teaches you anything. You have to learn it, and you learn it the hard way.
Okay, switching back to assistants. So you just mentioned, if an executive trusts their assistant, they've got to let them into their email inbox. So I've been talking to assistants from all over the world, and I've been hearing a common theme, unfortunately, where they are saying that their executive either has control issues where they don't want to give up control of their inbox, or they don't respect or trust them enough to let them into that world. So what would you say to the assistants that want to step up and do more and manage their simple thing like managing their inbox, but their executive won't even, consider it?
Well, I think you have to teach that executive what you know. Again, no one knows what you know. They know what you don't know, but no one knows what you know. So if I wanted to say to Pete Peterson, I can answer 3 or 4 of these emails, I would have to demonstrate that. Now, there's some executives who keep their heads down. We have to understand the first thing you learn when you accept a position with someone is to know who that person is and who that person can become when things go wrong. Because we're all the same. We're all one way, and when things go wrong, we become, in most instances, somebody else. So understanding how to reach that person, sometimes through humor, sometimes through, I would say, I'm going to walk with you to the men's room because I have 3 questions that I must have answered in order to be able to book your calendar, to make sure your calendar is correct. And so you do things in a way that shows that executive that you're not doing it for personal power. You're doing it to help that individual to be better at what they do. But you have to show what you're able to do. And if someone doesn't want to pay attention, I know a lot of executives in many ways, as we speak about control issues, showing that person how much you care about them and about the work and about their livelihood, because this is what that role is. Once you show that person, you can then say, okay, I can take this from you and this from you and this from you. What do you think? And how would you like me to make that happen? Here's what I think. And a lot of times assistants have responsibility for calendar decisions, not all the time. But if you do, that's a great opportunity, because once you understand what's important to that executive, you can then say, well, Melba Duncan is asked to be on your calendar on Tuesday, but I also know that on Saturday she's attending a function where you will be, and I've arranged for you to have a 5-minute conversation with her. So I've saved you that time on your calendar. That's the kind of thinking that demonstrates to that executive, one, that you're capable of having that kind of strategic way of looking at time, which we cannot manage, we cannot control, we manage it. And we don't even manage it, actually. We work with time. We are guided by time. So knowing that that's a focus for you educates that executive. So I think it's the responsibility, unfortunately, of the assistant to really educate that executive or those executives who really feel that they don't need someone to help them, or that they don't want to take the time. You have to make it happen. Make it happen. Here's a cup of coffee, and while I'm here, I have a question for you. So, are you walking out to get something? All right, I'm going to follow you because I have a question for you. But you do it in a light-hearted way, and it comes back to really liking the person you work with.
I like that. I walk my boss to his car frequently so that we're on the 3rd floor and we go down the steps. So I'm able to get quite a bit done in that, 3-minute walk to his car. So
that's right. And you're prepared because you know that's going to happen. I have these questions I must get answered, and I used to do that. I used to walk Pete to the car because he would call me and say, I can't find the car, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw that as an option to get answers that I would not be able to get without going back and forth and walking him to the car, So we do these things because we understand who the person is and we can read body language. Not now. Okay, I'll come back.
Yeah.
So, but also with humor and great respect. Great respect.
So what made you decide to start training assistants and also training executives? Where was that shift, and when did you kind of wake up and think, you know what, I need to train and help and coach assistants for the rest of my life, essentially?
I have taken that on, and I intend to continue doing it. I think it comes to us because 2 things. One, the clients we work with, regardless of where they are, we work globally, will tell us exactly who they are and what they expect. So the position descriptions that we would create based on those communications seem to me to be at a much higher level than the assistants we were able to detect in the workplace. And I don't know that it wasn't that they didn't have the talent for, they weren't aware of what this role it could entail. And so we decided, and I sat down with the professors from Columbia University, and I said, and these are the individuals who actually educate executives in economics at Columbia. And I said, you educate these managers. I work with individuals who support these managers. And so in my opinion, I want to see courses that in fact will enable assistants to somewhat understand what executives know. Of course, they're not going to have a full course, and it's a 6-day program, but it is a very high level. So it's getting assistants to see themselves on the other side of the role. And so they have, the professors in many ways, do a lot of, they have preliminary reading material that they must do. We have case studies that must be analyzed. They do roundtable discussions with the participants in the room. So you're getting a sense of what it is like to think along the lines of being an executive. And there's economics in the program, and of course there's cultural understanding globally, et cetera. But I saw a lot of ambiguity in the thinking of the assistant world. And I think a lot of individuals, a lot of companies still hold on to what I consider to be an old-fashioned perspective of what this role is. So we now look at, and our team, we look at how do we educate assistants to realize they are in a profession. This is not a job, it's a profession. And that it's a vital role, and there has to be discipline and the ability to learn and respond to change. And how do you know what all that means? If, one, your written communication skills are inadequate and your actual face-to-face communication skills are inadequate, we need to make sure you have the confidence to sit at a table and understand what is being said and know what your responsibility is for the determinations that are being made. So to me, I just saw the absence of, in many ways, the professional perspective of the role of assisting. And I thought, there are so many smart people out there who do this work. I mean, really smart individuals. And they don't necessarily have these advanced degrees. I know in today's world, it seems to be a higher demand. But what you learn in being an assistant is how to utilize common sense. And most people don't have it. And good judgment. And most people don't have that. And of course, you have to have a good personality. You can't teach judgment. You either have it or you don't. And so to me, these credentials and the leadership aspect and the management aspect and the business partnership relationship aspect of what it is we drive home to assistants and executives. Because I'll say to an executive, let me describe for you who you need. And he or she will say, Melba, are you telling me you can find someone who can do what you've just said? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you have to only walk the walk of being an assistant. There are individuals who come from different backgrounds, and we're interested in them as well. As long as the attitude is right. The attitude has to be right.
So let's talk about recruiting for a second. So you specialize, your team specializes in recruiting these world-class assistants for your clients.
Yeah.
What are some, you've talked a little bit about the traits, but what are some practical questions that you ask the executives before you try to go out and find them an assistant?
Tell me who you are. And also tell me, have you ever worked with an assistant before where it's been a success and or a failure? And give me the circumstances around both of those. Tell me if you are willing to share information, or do you prefer someone who likes to really find information out on their own? Tell me if you like to have occasional meetings with your assistant so that that individual knows what you expect. Tell me about the family circumstance. Are you expecting this assistant to manage family needs as well? Because that changes the role in some instances. Although to me, you're an executive life manager, so whatever happens in an executive's life, you are involved in it. But if you want a personal assistant, that is very different than a senior level executive assistant manager level type individual that we work with. So I try to understand, and in some instances, I've met with the wife. Well, Melba, could you have lunch with my wife? Absolutely. And I tell you, I get more information from that communication than I will get from the executive himself. And the opposite is equally true. But executives who really fail, and I say this all the time, when you come to us, know that I'm suggesting that you hire someone who will be for you a business partner, not someone who fetches and carries. You may do that, but you are actually thinking along the lines of your expectations. It is a vital role. So and again, we get to know those executives more and more as we present backgrounds and explain to the executive why we have selected certain individuals, and then we hear their response. Or the feedback that we will get from the executive after they've interviewed a candidate, will it also enable us to know, okay, let's not send that person again, that type of person. That's not going to work. So let's move. So everything an executive says to us in this process is as relevant to us, and maybe even more so, that in terms of when we assess assistance as well. So it is, for me, staying a step ahead is not what I try to do with clients. I try to walk at the same pace as they are, or as they submit to how we need them to respond. So it is, to me, companies who know how to hire are assistants at the level where we work is in many ways still need to be educated to let these individuals, first of all, change titles. That's number one. But let the individuals work in a way that allows them to demonstrate leadership and communication skills, because you have to have those things. They have to be evident for us. So that's, we close the circle, and it's interesting in the team, we'll all say, oh, this is the right person. And why? It's because the person has worked with an individual who has somewhat the same temperament. By the way, everything we do is hugely confidential. So what I learn about a client or an assistant, I do not share. Those are just information values for us. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, no, don't you dare send this person, because this person is argumentative. And, there are some executives who are yes and no individuals. That's it. And others like to talk forever. So you have to really know who to send. And if in fact someone lacks the maturity, that comes out as well. And it can be in the executive side or the support side.
So you mentioned being a leader. What makes an assistant a leader?
You demonstrate and you share your knowledge, obviously paying close attention to confidentiality. But a leader is someone who demonstrates different levels of skills and shares that knowledge with others. It's not that I say to someone, I'm a leader. That does not make me a leader. What you do is you exemplify the qualities of strength, collaboration, empathy, which I think is essential for this role as well, and caring. In other words, if I see, to me, a leader in the support staff level is someone who notices someone who may look a little down during the day, and you take 2 minutes and you walk over and say, is there something I can do? Or, by the way, team, I know I've just learned how to do this. Does anyone need some help in that? Or, by the way, team, can you help me with something? So there's a way to show that you care about helping others. That, to me, is leadership. And helping others to be even better than you might be. And these relationships are lasting. I belong to the Seraphic Society. And that I've been a member of that since I worked with Pete Peterson. And this is comprised of, I think we're about 100 or so senior level executive assistants. Each person must work for a CEO, must be approved. And they call it the secret society. But the reality of this is that everyone in that room, when we have an event, they're all leaders in their own way. Because there are others in their organizations who may not have reached the level where they are in their role. And they've taken on the responsibility for guiding others in how to be great in this role. So that to me is leadership. It's helping others to be great and not be afraid of competition. That to me doesn't work.
So you published a book called The New Executive Assistant a few years ago. I'm not going to say what year, but there was a phrase on the cover that said, keep pace with the technology revolution.
Yes.
And that's, this was a few years ago that this book was published, but sure. If anybody that's, has a heartbeat knows that artificial intelligence and, the future of work is such a hot topic, and it's still in the news today. So first of all, you were very prophetic and saw the future in that statement on your book. But if you were to write a new edition of this book today, what's one new chapter that you would add to it?
learn how to be innovative, because technology is not going to replace this function. It's not going to replace human beings, actually. I don't believe so, at least not in my lifetime. But certainly learn how to utilize technology to use your intelligence in how to utilize technology. Now, there are companies where we go in and we work with support staff, and we educate support staff in how to learn what they know what they know what they don't know. And to me, it's looking at the technology aspect that where everyone is sort of with a blank stare. And I say, well, why can't you devise your own systems? Why can't you design a follow-up system? Yes, of course, it exists in many ways, but how you work at your desk, and this was some of the comments I would hear, Melba, some of what we're using doesn't work because this is not how the executive needs information. Then create your own. No one stops you from doing that. I'm not suggesting you try to get that into a public market, but certainly utilizing and being innovative, technology drives that. And to me, that's the most exciting part of the change in the world today, is that you are being forced to think in other ways. And if you can't find the information you need, guess what? That means you haven't spent enough time looking for it because it's there. So curiosity, innovation, and again, self-reliance, and knowing that your thinking is, you know what? Success matters, and I'm not going to stop until I get the answer to this. Technology makes us far more innovative than we could ever think. And creativity at the assistant level is what makes assistants fabulous. They're creative. You know, you can come up with an answer in a moment just to protect someone else's concern. Mm-hmm. That's who assistants can be. So use that same level of thinking and know that authenticity is a reality, but also create the environment that you need using your innovation and using your technology. Go home and figure out how to write a program that you need, how to communicate with the executive in a way that he or she likes to receive information. It may not be an email. It may be a series of notes in a certain way. It may be a spreadsheet. Create all those things that respond to how the executive wants to receive information. Now, I'm not dismissing what exists as the normal process, but I'm saying at your desk, in today's world, there are different personalities and ways to exchange information. Create your own systems. And there's a joy in that. There's a joy in that.
That's great. So if you could snap your fingers and instantly give all assistants more of something, what would it be?
Compensation. That came right out because I'm thinking these are individuals who work very hard and who are silent in many ways about what it is they do every single day. No one, unless you're an assistant, you really don't know what these individuals do and what they are capable of. So to me, compensation really has to be revisited. These boundaries and these guidelines based on, I think, antiquated position descriptions are no longer functional. And what will happen is that you will stop attracting the best individuals into this profession. Because we have individuals who come to us with MBAs and JD degrees, et cetera, and they are top-level assistants. They need to be paid well. Why not? You're asking someone to work 24/8, but 24/7. You're always working, no matter where you are and what you're doing. So pay these individuals, and you will get outstanding performance, and you'll also keep a profession really, really moving forward.
So you say 24/7, and I know that there are certain roles that are literally you're on call, and then some that you're right. Maybe not on call, but you're ready if there's something that comes up. How do you balance, and how would you encourage assistants and executives both to balance the work hard, be available, be, ready for change and ready for fixing things and figuring things out at any moment versus resting and taking a break and staying healthy?
Well, I say, and I'll answer this, I'll follow you how you've just ended the question, and that is the most important person is yourself. Health, physical fitness is mental fitness and mental agility. So taking care of yourself first is essential. And that means you have to know how to say no. We all have boundaries in some way. And for me, Sunday mornings I was not available. Now, if a crisis happened, I'm not suggesting I wouldn't be available. But as a general weekend, you can call me any other time. But between 8 and 1 on Sundays, I'm not available. And believe it or not, you educate executives to know what's important to you. You set your boundaries. Now, there are many assistants who have young families that they need to take care of. These are all established conversations before you accept the position. And you'll still get calls in the evening because that's part of the role. But the abuse of that relationship or the abuse of that power is something that the assistant must control and manage. This is when I'm available. This is when I'm not. And you really have, if you have the best attitude and that person you support knows that you'll do whatever is required to make things happen according to what he or she needs, then you can say, I cannot be available on Saturday or on Sunday. But I will get back to you Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, and you do that. But you have to draw that very, very, very distinct line that gives you your own space, that gives you your own opportunities to feel good about yourself, because this role takes a lot from who you are. You're giving up a lot of who you are to help somebody else. So you need to make sure you take care of yourself as well and your family. So I'm very, 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 how do I say? I don't want to say strict. That's not a good word. But I do get concerned when executives say, well, I need someone on a Saturday to run errands, et cetera. And I'll say, really? Why does it have to be on a Saturday? And what are the errands? And why can't we get someone else to do that? Mm-hmm. So we don't, we're very careful. I listen carefully to who the executives are. And I listen carefully to who assistants are. And I say, do you have the confidence to say, no, I cannot do it. I will get it done on Monday morning. I will come in earlier on Monday morning to get it done. You'll have it by Monday afternoon, but I cannot do it over the weekend. That's it.
Great.
Confidence.
So what are you grateful for?
My life. I'm grateful for having been in a world and continuing to be in a world where most individuals, I won't say don't have access. That's not true. But for someone such as a Melba Duncan to be able to have the communication and to get to meet the individuals I meet, both from the CEO level and the assistant level, and to be in a world where things are changing and driving change is what we do. I think for me, this is the greatest gift I could have. I also have a wonderful family and grandchildren, and that's also my other greatest gift. But I think being able to do this work and to think we've done something really worthwhile for this profession and demanding standards be changed to allow for individuals who do this work to grow and expand, to meet who they are. Because to me, I'm looking at the pathway from senior level assistant to chief of staff. Why not? You don't, and chief of staff, I know has been around for a while, but I'm looking at the assistant who spent years understanding the business, the personality, the products, the communication, and you take that knowledge and now you move into, that's why we do these courses as well, management, leadership, direction, strategy, all that. Same person. If you choose it, you don't have to. But that's the pathway that I see for this role. So to me, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to meet with the best individuals on this planet and learn from them. Because everyone I speak with, I learn something new. And I'll walk out and grab my little notebook and write down a thought and say, my goodness, I didn't even think about that. That's brilliant. So I learn from all these individuals. So I'm very, very grateful. I've had a lot of gifts in my life.
That's great. Well, Melba, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with us. And my listeners are really appreciative of the work you're doing for the assistant industry. And where can we find you online, and how can we support what you're doing?
Well, it's my email office is melba@duncangroupinc.com. And then we have the Duncan Leadership Institute, which I think we're now we've connected it to the Duncan Group website. So if you go online, the Duncan Group website, you can connect with us there. And of course, we're running this program in August and we're filling it now. And ironically, we have assistants from Abu Dhabi who are attending this program. Because we went to Abu Dhabi and we did some training there, and they are now coming to follow through on this program because they see the benefit of it. So this is, again, to me, that's where I get my energy. I say, okay, we're on the right track. So we can be reached through our website, certainly through my email.
Great. Well, I'll share those links on the show notes so everybody can get those easily and click the links and check out Melba on LinkedIn as well, and really support what she's doing if you haven't already. But yeah, thanks again, Melba. And I really look forward to talking again soon and meeting you in person one day. It'll
be wonderful. That will be a wonderful gift. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Take care.
Help my dad out and leave a review on iTunes. GoBulls.com